Welcome back to Leadership Devotionals. Today we will be dealing still with the story of Peter. And we are on the third installment. And so this is the case of Peter 3. This is a narrative of transformation. Of Peter's transformation towards a great Christian leader in the early church. In the last two episodes, the first one we had dealt with Peter's self-serving vision. The second one with his overestimated abilities. Today, we will be talking about Peter's dysfunctional relationships. You see, many dysfunctions can plague relationships. And we know that if you want your leadership to be successful, you must be a person who knows how to create relationships, who knows how to navigate relationships, and who knows how to maintain and build on relationships. Now, some noted in leadership research which are dysfunctional behaviors are manipulation, unreasonable demands, breaking of promises, unchecked power, pathologic narcissism, unethical means of winning support, and taking personal credit for the contribution of others. These are among the dysfunctions that plague relationships in leadership. And if you don't know how to deal with this, or if you don't know how to work on these dysfunctions, this kind of behavior and traits are going to destroy relationships and eventually destroy your leaderships. Now, in the gospel, the books that records the story of people, the gospel do not give evidence of all of these dysfunctions that I have just mentioned, that they are found in Peter's early relationships. No, not all of this are seen. I've mentioned them because researchers have found out that those kinds of dysfunctions are the ones that destroy relationships. However, some of those dysfunctions that I have mentioned are present in Peter's relationships. Perhaps most notable of those is Peter's apparent disregard for the effect of his words and his actions on others. Take, for example, this case recorded in Matthew 26, verse 31 to 35. When Jesus predicts Peter's denial, Peter not only denies Jesus' prediction, he contradicted Jesus' prediction, but he also competitively compares himself with others' disciples. He assesses himself positively and everyone else negatively, to which the other disciples appear defiant as they refute Peter's assessment. Now, let's read about this episode in Matthew chapter 26, verse 31 to 35. And when Jesus said to them, "All of you will be made to stumble." Okay? Jesus said, all of you, he's talking to his disciples, all of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will all be scattered. And so Jesus predicted that. But after I have been raised, I will go before you in Galilee. Now in verse 33, look and notice how Peter reacted to this. Peter answered and said to him, even if all, and this is in the hearing of his fellow disciples, even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble. Just imagine that. It was already his Lord who predicted that. It was already his rabbi, his master, his Christ who predicted that. That all will stumble because of him. Peter contradicted and even made this boisterous claim. Even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble. Take note of those words. And then Jesus patiently looked at Peter and said this word, assuredly, I say to you that this night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. This is already Jesus' second prediction. The first one is, all of you will stumble, and that includes Peter. The second is, this time specific to Peter. He said, before the night ends, and before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. Notice this again, how Peter reacted in verse 35. And Peter said to him, even if I have to die, just imagine that. He swore over his life, even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you. Imagine that. I will never deny you. 2 times did Peter refuted Jesus and made this bold claim. And when I said a while ago that the other disciples appear defiant as they refute Peter's assessment, because he said, even all of them will stumble, I will not. Notice this last line of verse 35. And so said all the disciples. They said they will not also deny Jesus. Of course, that is a promise to Jesus, and also that is a refute to what Peter have said. But the point there is that Peter has a dysfunctional assessment of himself. So much so that such kind of claims has placed him in contradiction and in friction with his fellow disciples. Another evidence of Peter's dysfunctional relationship surfaces in his emotional reaction to the matter of paying the temple tax. A challenging situation, one in which Jesus has to step in and felt it necessary to do some damage control so that we will not offend them. Let's look at this in Matthew chapter 17, verse 24. Okay, verse 24 to 27. When they had come to Capernaum, those who received the temple tax came to Peter and said, does your teacher not pay the temple tax? Then Peter replied, without batting an eyelash. He said, verse 25, yes. Yes. And then he had come into the house. Jesus anticipated him. Jesus was already ready to do the damage control that he has done, saying, what do you think, Simon? What's in your mind, Simon? Why did you say that? And the rest, of course, was the damage control action by Jesus so that they will be able to get a coin and pay it to the temple tax collectors. Other example includes Peter's broken promises. Of course, he said that he will not deny his Lord, and he denied. He also went with Jesus afar off in the Garden of Gethsemane, promising to pray with him. And what did he do? He was asleep. Likewise, also instances where his rash reactions, his rash actions had kind of placed some friction between his relationship with his fellow disciples is his inability to mind his own business. You know, in John 21 verse 20 to 22, this was the part where Jesus was telling Peter, feed my flock. This was the redemption part. Okay, this was the redemption part of Peter's denial of Jesus. And later on, when John was following Jesus, and of course John was John the Beloved, Peter also mingled there and, didn't mind his own business. We can read that in John 21, 20 to 22. His inclination to speak when he did not know what he was speaking. And the last example is his unforgiving spirit and apparent preoccupation with the limitations and mechanics of forgiveness rather than with the transformation of his hard heart. You see, this instant, before there was a rule that you can only forgive. I mean, you only give forgiveness for 3 times. And so Peter, thinking that he's magnanimous already, when he asked Jesus, when he inquired with Jesus, we read that in Matthew 18, verse 21. And then Peter said to him, Lord, how often shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Shall it be up to 7 times? Peter thought, maybe if I double the 3 times and, 6 doesn't look like a good number, probably 7 will be a good number. Probably my Lord will confirm this. And so he said, how often shall I forgive my brother? Shall it be up to 7 times? He was more concerned about the number rather than the transformation that occurs in the heart of the sinner. Then Jesus said to him, I do not say to you up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Jesus was just kind of saying, you magnify that. That's how gracious the Lord is. That's how loving God is. That's how magnificent God's gracious that is abundant and overflows to everyone. Fellow leaders, leadership thrives best in a community characterized by healthy relationship, not dysfunctional relationship. Leadership thrives so well in an environment where healthy relationships are built between the members of the team. Jesus knew that. And in the case of Peter, he patiently mentored Peter accordingly. If we are guilty of these certain dysfunctions, just like Peter, fellow leaders, Jesus is knocking at your heart's door. He is always willing to mentor you. He is always willing to guide you. He is always willing to be yoked with you. Just come to Him in prayer, and He will be with you in your leadership journey. God bless you today.